Good afternoon, everyone, if you're in Eastern time with me, or good morning if you're on Central time, like my friend Bob. Welcome to our webinar today. We are so thrilled that you have decided to invest some time in learning with us. As we get started today, I want to let you know about a few technical considerations. Several of you have already found the question panel. Since this webinar is all about questions, we want to be sure to take yours later on in the broadcast. So if you could take a quick moment and find that question panel, I'd love to know where you're calling in from today. I am calling in from my home office in Lambertville, Michigan, and Bob is in his home office in Plano, Texas. It looks like we've got folks in Arizona, California, Missouri, Illinois, Tennessee, Virginia, Michigan, Oregon, Kansas, Colorado, Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, Toronto, London, California, the Bahamas, more Canada. These are coming in so fast. We have a caller in the Middle East, someone in Iowa, Virginia, Des Moines, South Carolina. Welcome to all of you, and I'm thrilled that you found the question panel. Later on, I will welcome your questions there. Someone in Hungary. Wow. And Arkansas. I'm seeing almost every single state in the union. It's obvious that this topic of questions is impactful, and I expect that we're going to learn so much together today. So a couple of other things. We will be sharing with you later the recording to today's broadcast in case you would like to share it with others. And we have a special giveaway at the very end of today's call, so I hope that you'll stay on. And this is actually scheduled to only be a 30-minute conversation, so it's going to be quite fast-paced. I do have to give a shout to more international callers. Switzerland, we also, not international, but a state I haven't seen represented in some time, a caller from Maui. So to all of you who have joined, thank you so much. Again, I want to take also a quick moment to introduce Bob Tiede. It might be that you already know Bob. If you know him, you might know him from his blog, Leading with Questions. He founded the blog in 2012, and in that time has done over 600 posts to equip leaders around the world. This image that we're looking at right now is just a glimpse at the traffic patterns of folks who visit Bob's blog, and you'll see that nearly every country is lit up with the color yellow, which means that Bob has readers all around the world who are being influenced and developed through the writing that he does. So Bob, thank you for your service through Leading with Questions, and also through your service with Crew. Bob has been a staff member with Crew for 46 years, since the year 1971, and I will not tell you why I did the math so fast on that. And Bob has also been married to his lovely wife, Sherry, for over 48 years, and they have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. So Bob, welcome.
Becky, it's an honor to be here. And it's an honor to have all these incredible guests that have joined us.
It sure is. And so why don't we just go ahead and get started? We want to make the most of our time together. And I know, Bob, we were going to start today in one of the books that you've written. You share that you are a charter member of TA. So can you tell me, Bob, what is TA?
I'd be happy to, Becky. When I ask that question, you know, how many of you are familiar with TA? Very seldom does anyone put their hand up. And I ask, well, if you've ever heard of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and of course, everyone's heard of AA. Well, TA is Tellers Anonymous. I'm a charter member. I go to our meetings, the TA meetings, and I stand up and say, my name's Bob. I'm a teller. And the truth is, I'm addicted to telling. Some of our listeners may even pick this up on the call. I love to tell. But in 2006, I discovered a book by Dr. Michael Marquardt called Leading with Questions. It was a page turner for me. And as I read that book, my leadership forever made a shift from being a leader who always told, because I thought that's what leaders were supposed to do, to a leader that saw there was incredible benefit in asking staff what they thought and getting input and asking others. And, you know, as it says on my blog, leadership is not knowing all the answers, it's just knowing a few of the right questions.
That's really helpful. Well, Bob, can you tell us, and here I go playing into this telling, but could you tell us why a leader who leads with questions is better than a leader who leads by telling? And what are the benefits of asking more questions?
Well, Becky, a great question. I want to ask you a question in turn. Becky, I know you have a great team around you. Let's just assume for a moment you had your whole team in a rowboat, a literal rowboat. And the goal was to get across the lake as fast as possible. And there were oars available for every team member. How many of those team members, Becky, would you hope would row with you?
Every single one, Bob, but that would be a crowded boat.
Well, a pretty big rowboat then. Um, well, Becky, and I know you do lead with questions, but I ask leaders, if that's true, then why would you want to row into the future of your company, your organization, overcoming challenges and opportunities, not overcoming opportunities, but seizing new opportunities, and you're the only one rowing? Why would you not want to get all their oars in the water? And the way in which you do that is to ask them for their input. What do you think is the best way forward? What do you think we could do to overcome this issue? And take advantage of all the horsepower, all the brain power that exists on that team. And I love quotes. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but it says people will support that which they help to create. And so when you ask your team, you said the benefit of asking, when you ask your team for input, and the plan that's developed then is one that they've all given input into, well, then you'll realize that they will also support that which they've helped to create.
That's really powerful, Bob. Thank you. So, in your book, Leading with Questions, which you released a few years ago now, you shared that you can teach anyone to lead with questions in 30 seconds. So, how is that possible? Really, you can teach me in 30 seconds how to lead with questions.
Well, Becky, you're willing to be the guinea pig here?
Sure.
Becky, I'm going to preface this with saying that often as I speak and share about leading with questions, lots and lots of people say, wow, I'd love to do that. But they imagine that in order to do that, they'd have to go kind of get like a master's degree in questionology. It's kind of like it'd be great, but I don't think I have the time to do that or to develop this new skill. And so that's where I share, well, I actually can teach you how to lead with questions in 30 seconds. Now, Becky, I believe that you have such a powerful memory that you will only have to hear these 4 questions once and you will have them memorized. So here's 4 questions that will make you a leader that leads with questions. The first question, Becky, is what do you think? Now you would add about the issue before the team, the opportunity. It'd be what do you think about something related to where you're going? So question number 1 is what do you think? Question number 2 is what else? Question number 3, what else? Question number 4, what else? Becky, do you now have memorized my 4 favorite leading with questions?
I sure do, Bob. First, I'm going to ask, what do you think about? Then I'm going to ask, what else? What else? What else?
Becky, when some people hear that, they think, well, you can't really do that. But in a real conversation, you ask that first question and they give you an answer. And then you lean forward. The inflection in your voice is really important. If you say, well, what else? Probably, they're not going to respond. But when you lean forward with eagerness and say, wow, what else? Or you could change the question up to say, tell me more about that. Wow, I'm taking notes. Don't stop now. What else? And the reason, well, often, Becky, it's actually the third and fourth question that will get to their gold nugget. Something we all do kind of instinctively without giving it thought is we protect ourselves. And so when somebody asks us a question, kind of our initial response is we're rolling something out to see how they will treat it. And so Becky, if you asked me what I thought about something and I gave you that first answer and you said, oh, Bob, that's dumb, everyone knows it. Well, I'm glad then I didn't say anything else. But when you say, wow, keep talking, what else? Well, by the time I get to the third and fourth, I'm feeling like Becky thinks I'm really smart. And so now I'm feeling very comfortable to share what I think are my best thoughts on that. So that's why all four. What do you think? And then what else, what else, what else to get to their gold nugget. So, Becky, now you have memorized four questions. And if our listeners, viewers today, walk away just with those four questions, and this afternoon they turn to their team on some issue the team is talking about and ask their team, what do you think? Or an individual on that team in a one-on-one meeting, and follow that with what else, what else, what else, you will be on your way to leading with questions. And Becky, to getting every oar in the water as you row your way forward.
Well, and it seems like, Bob, that there's an important piece here of discipline, of disciplining yourself to hold off on judgment or hold off on
Mm.
comments or hold off on defensiveness so that those follow-up questions can inspire people to share more of what's really on their hearts or on their minds.
That's a great point, Becky. A great point. You've got to ask and then with eagerness sit and listen. And listen not to respond, but listen to understand. And that's where, having the next question ready of what else actually gets you more down the path to getting to their gold nugget.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm already seeing some questions come into the question panel. So we want to move to those. And Janet has this question, Bob. What do you do if you're not able to take action on someone's idea, even if it's a good idea, due to other limitations? So as a leader, you want to let them know that you've heard them, but you can't necessarily take action. So what do you do in that situation?
That's a fantastic question. Um, as leaders, we always need to be honest. And I think just giving the honest response of, wow, I really appreciate your input. And I'm going to, take that under consideration. I'm not sure of the timing on this, but I am so grateful for the input you've given, affirming the input. And again, people will know if you're genuine, or are you just putting them off, or is that a genuine input? And people understand you can't implement everything instantly.
Sure, that's really helpful, Bob. Like I said, lots of questions coming in. And Barbara would like to know, Bob, what's the best question you've ever been asked?
Wow. Well, there are so many, but what immediately, instantly comes to my mind, and is this one. A couple of years ago, the guy who has been my lifelong mentor, Bob Beal, I asked him if he had any new questions. And he said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And he said, at first blush, though, you might think, Bob, is that all you got? I said, well, I'm all ears. He said, here it is. What questions are you asking yourself lately? And Becky, we don't have time for the whole story, but instantly, as soon as he asked that question, I realized there was an issue that I'd been processing. I had not even verbalized it to anyone, but an issue I'd been processing, a question I'd been asking. And his asking that question, what questions are you asking yourself, prompted and actually created a breakthrough for me. So I would say that is one of the greatest questions I've been asked. What questions are you asking yourself lately?
Thanks, Bob. I like that one also. Oh my goodness, so many questions. I'm going to move to Matt's question. Matt said he knows there's no such thing as a dumb question, but do you truly believe there are no dumb questions, Bob?
Hmm. I hear that, and there's wisdom in that, but I think at times there are dumb questions. And And for example, if we're not really listening to somebody and they've just given us an answer, and then we ask a question that reveals that we haven't actually been listening. Um, I also think at times that I don't know if they're dumb, but we ask closed questions when an open question would elicit more information. You know, did you like the meeting? Well, it's a yes or no. You know, what are your takeaways from that meeting?
Mhm.
Now you actually can get some input and hear what somebody's thinking. So, you know, but sometimes the closed question is the appropriate one. Um, you know, what time does the plane leave? You want an exact answer. But I think, you know, the dumb one is to ask the probably vice versa, an open when you really need a quick answer and a closed when you really want them to tell you more.
That's really helpful. Being able to ask the right question at the right time. So Suresh from Switzerland is wondering, Bob, how do you ensure that your questions don't sound as like an interrogation and put people off?
Ah, that's a fantastic question. And I think here, um, the fact that you want to become a leader who leads with questions doesn't mean that you need to ask 10 at a time and do it in rapid fire order as if, you know, you were the prosecuting attorney. Um, and I think, you know, sometimes I will preface or say, you know, Becky, I would love your input on this. And then I ask the question and some of the follow up of, you know, what else and what else. Um, and then to express appreciation. Wow, Becky, thank you so much. This is really helpful. Um, you know, it actually occurs to me that leads me to another question I want to ask you. And if it's a conversation where, in other words, I'm not asking just closed questions, but open questions, and I'm listening and perhaps asking a follow up question or two, it won't feel like an interrogation. And I think it's one of the things a leader just needs to kind of have self awareness of when am I asking too many questions in rapid fire, and are they feeling like they're being put on the spot? In other words, I think even one question, if it's viewed as a gotcha question, can can have the feel of an interrogation question versus a genuine interest of wanting to learn from the person you're asking.
That's really helpful. So I'm going to combine a couple of questions that are pretty similar that came in from Jonathan and Brianna. They're both wondering what you do when you ask a question and you get a one-word answer, or you're not really getting, you know, the person doesn't really have a lot to say. So you say, what else? And the person says, I don't know. So how do you infuse a better chemistry to entice people to share more?
Hmm. Um, Again, a fantastic question. And let me just say, I'm sure there's times I'm asked questions that I really don't have an answer. That's okay. And but here's something interesting that I read recently. In fact, it may have been in a blog post by one of the guest bloggers who shared that when we ask a question, the average person only waits 2 to 3 seconds before we either restate the question, ask another question, answer the question ourselves, or just move on. And they talked about the 8 second rule. And that is when you ask a question to count to yourself at least to 8 to give them time to answer and to sit relaxed, looking, you know, giving them eye contact, but relaxed and just wait. And in fact, the longer you wait, probably the better their answer. So I'm saying sometimes we may not wait long enough. It's and again, unless you're aware of this 8 second rule, we unconsciously jump in at 2 to 3 seconds. Then another thing is when they start answering is to, when they're, they finished, instead of us jumping in, just sit like you're waiting for more. And after 2 or 3 seconds, guess what they do?
They give
Often
you
they
more.
start telling you more.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that won't be the answer when they truly don't have an answer. And when somebody says, wow, I don't know, I do have in a coaching situation a follow-up question I use. I sometimes say, well, if you did know, what would your answer be? And I'm amazed how many people will answer that question. But it's okay for people not to have an answer. This is not an interrogation.
Thanks, Bob. John is wondering what your thoughts are on starting questions with the word why.
Ah, um, I have two thoughts there. In asking a person why, that often is not the best question. Um, you know, let's just say, Becky, I'm trying to think of something here, but, why did you do that, Becky? Always put you on the defensive. But if I said, hey, Becky, what brought you to that conclusion? How did you decide to take that action? So replacing why with what or how often improves that. But then down another side, when we're not addressing it at a person, there's the concept of asking why 5 times in order to get to the root cause. But now you're addressing a situation, not a person. So you're saying, sales are falling. Why is that? And you answer that question. Then why is that? And you answer that question. And why is that? Many times it takes to the 5 times to actually see the root cause. So when asking a person what or how, but when figuring out why something is happening in a situation, ask why 5 times. There's benefit there.
That's really helpful, Bob. Mike is asking, in the age of email, how do you ask meaningful questions, I'm assuming via email, to elicit the engagement that you would want if you were face to face? Do you have any tips on that, Bob?
Sure. Um, when we're verbal, we know that it's best to ask one question at a time and not to stack questions. And I think in email, sometimes we're asking too many questions. Also, having self-awareness to know when is email helpful and when is it not. Uh, I certainly have failed at this sometimes, but I seek to only use email to exchange information. If it really requires discussion or there's the potential for any disagreement, I want to get ear to ear, face to face, ear to ear, Skype, cell phone, but let's visit so that we can ask, I can listen, I understand, and that so often solves things much faster, or even gets better information. Um, Email works more on those closed questions or short answer questions. Um, and so that'd be my response. Be selective in how many questions and what kinds of questions.
Great. Well, Bob, we are getting close to the end of our time together. And I know that one of the things you told me at the top of the hour is that you really want to learn from our attendees today. And so for those of you who are still with us, and there are very many of you, we would love to know from you, what are a couple of your favorite questions to ask those you lead? And as time allows, I'm going to go ahead and share some of those out as you type them into your question panel. So what are a couple of your favorite questions to ask those you lead? Bob, if it's okay with you, I will share mine along the way while we're waiting for people to type, but I have one. What can I do to help you is one of Kimberly's
Uh,
favorite questions to ask people. How can I help you? Tell me more about the topic. Help me understand. What are your expectations from me in the next 3 months? What am I missing here? What are you passionate about? What are you learning lately? What is the biggest challenge for you in this? How can I help you move X initiative forward? What would make the most difference to you? How might we? What would you do differently next time? What have I forgotten to ask? How do you think we can sort this out? How would you approach this? What is your biggest challenge? How can I help you be successful today?
Hmm.
What did you learn? In an interview, asking the employer, what do you love and hate about this company? What do you wish I had asked you?
Wow.
Lots of amazing questions coming in. What have you
Becky,
not told me? Yes, sir.
it just, these are incredible. Thank you so much. And I'm sitting here, Becky, in the system we have here, can we capture both the question and the name of
we,
who's sharing it?
we absolutely can. So we're going to pull
Uh,
a report that will show you all of
yeah.
this.
I want to tell our listeners, do not be surprised if you see a future blog post sharing these incredible questions. Wow, I'm learning from our audience, Becky. These are fantastic.
Well, and I have a question here from Wade asking, can we email a list of these? It's possible that we can pull a list and put some of these questions into our follow-up email. And as Bob is referencing, he can do a blog post in the future that includes some of these. I, I like to, I'm trying to remember what I like to ask. Aubrey, you are not able to probably type in the question panel. I feel like I ask the same questions a lot. What's going well? I will often ask, what's going well?
You ask, what are you committed to completing this week, or what are you committed to working on this week?
I do ask that, don't I? Then at the end of the week, I ask, what did you finish this week, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, Becky, I love that question. What's going well? I was
Mm-hmm.
on a podcast with Tom Ziegler, Zig Ziglar's son, and I shared that question. And he said, Bob, can I tell you why that's such a great question? I said, well, of course, it's your program. He said, when the brain is processing positive things like what's going well, positive endorphins are firing. And he said, that's such a better place for a team to then attack problems or look at opportunities because they're feeling like we're winners. And now let's go after this and win some more. Where if you start with what's not going well, you have the whole team. If you never ask what's going well, it's always the problems. The whole team feels like we're a bunch of losers and we have problems we have to solve. That's not a good place from which to solve. So applaud to you, Becky.
Well, thank you, Bob. And yeah, I'm just amazed by the quality of the questions that have been coming in. And thanks to all of you who have taken the time to share them with us. Before we run out of time, I want to make sure that I let everyone know about how they can get your ebooks for free. So, Bob, first of all, I'm really curious. You know, you've written these two great resources. Why are they free, and how can people get them?
Well, if they'll look at the bottom, let's cover that first. If you'll just type into um, leadingwithquestions.com/resources, you'll be taken to a page where you enter your email, hit enter, and instantly you will be taken to a page where you'll be able to download these resources for free. Great Leaders Ask Questions. You see the book there. There's also an audio book, free MP3. And you asked why I make them free. Becky, I have a heart to serve. When this concept became clear to me, the advantage of leading with questions, it so revolutionized my leadership that I was eager to share this with everyone. And my heart is to serve. It's a bit like, I don't know that I've seen this MasterCard commercial continue to be run, but where, you know, they add up what things cost, but then they say, but the real value is it's priceless. And so getting stories in of how leaders have had their own leadership effectiveness multiplied many times over by moving from a leader who leads by telling to a leader who leads by asking, that to me has been priceless and way more valuable than a few dollars that I might have made had I sought to monetize what I'm doing. So everything I do in social media on my blog is made available to those who follow or come across it for absolutely free.
Well, and there's something unique about your ebooks, Bob. I know that they're not only just available in English. So, in case we have folks on the line who have, different languages, tell us other ways that these are available.
Well, Becky, many Americans don't realize that English is actually the third most popular language in the world. The most popular is Chinese. And so just recently, both of my books are now available in both traditional and simplified Chinese. And when you go to that leadingwithquestions.com/resources, you'll actually see the Chinese. And then Spanish, Great Leaders Ask Questions has been translated to Spanish. It's also available as a free Spanish MP3 audiobook. And then 339 Questions Jesus Asked is also available in Spanish. And in the future, we hope to make them available even in more languages, recognizing that, they're, again, Chinese most popular language in the world, Spanish second, English third.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Bob. Thank you for investing this time in sharing your insights and your questions with us. Thanks to all of you who invested your time to learn with Bob. And we look forward to all the many more resources that you're going to continue to bring through Leading with Questions. Thank you, Bob.
Becky, thank you for hosting this, and all who tuned in, thank you so much for spending this time with us.